What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. With week one in the books, you know what time it is. Today, we've got our week two game picks outright versus the spread, along with our locks of the week. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. And if you want early access to these picks, go ahead, check us out online at alldaypigskin.com. All you have to do is join our free newsletter and you will get access to these picks before Thursday night football. And also give us a follow on Twitter at alldaypigskin so you can get up to the minute thoughts from yours truly as the betting goes live. So check that out. All the details in the description. But for now, let's get right into it. Before getting into our breakdown, I want to give you guys a quick word from our sponsors at Overlay Fantasy Sports, who are taking DFS to a whole nother level. And let's face it, right now, it can get a little bit boring just betting on the same old Team A versus Team B money line or spread picks. Well, this is where the all-new matchup shop function of Overlay Fantasy Sports comes into play. It allows you to go ahead and pick between a bunch of individual player matchups as if you're looking at a fantasy stat sheet. And that's the beauty of this thing. You've got so many different options to pick from. Sure, you can go ahead and pick from the first option, Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford. And as you can see, you're given specific spread picks here. So just like a regular game, if you think that Aaron Rodgers is going to outscore Matthew Stafford in fantasy points by at least 2, then smash that buy button on Aaron Rodgers. But maybe you want to look at another ticket here and look at some running back odds. Well, you can go and have Christian McCaffrey or Derrick Henry. Maybe you think that Derrick Henry is a great buy this week at plus 7.5. The point being is you have got a bunch of options. And on top of this, you have also got the ability to set up a multi-pick ticket and get a parlay going so you can double your money even more so and have no fear. If you guys want to look at some other picks, not just the NFL, Overlay Fantasy allows you to do that as well by looking at the golf picks, MLB, or even the NBA. So take advantage of all these opportunities. Allow yourself to get a couple of extra dollars following all the research you guys have been doing. Don't only get those fantasy wins, but get a couple of dollars in your pocket by the end of game day as well. We kick off week 2 on Thursday night with the Cincinnati Bengals at the Cleveland Browns. Both these teams at 0-1, the Battle of Ohio. The Bengals heartbreaking loss versus the Chargers in a low-scoring game with a missed field goal that could have sent it into overtime for them, whereas the Cleveland Browns got pretty much handled by the Baltimore Ravens in a blowout in week 1. But as far as predicting this game, we actually went ahead and broke it down earlier in the week, so hopefully if you guys follow us on Twitter at alldaypigskin or are signed up for our newsletter, you were able to take advantage of those bets we gave out because we actually hit on both of them. But let's go ahead and quickly break down how we saw this contest. Basically, we said for the Bengals, we're a little bit hesitant to take them offensively because last week, low-scoring affair. Joe Burrow looked a little bit shaky. He still hasn't had his preseason, and both these teams dealing with injuries in the trenches, which makes this affair even that much bigger of a question mark. But we gave the slight edge to the Cleveland Browns because that Bengals defense didn't really scare us all that much. So we really knew that Nick Chubb had a great opportunity to get going in this game. And if that rush was able to get it going for the Browns, it would alleviate some pressure from Baker Mayfield and some of those wide receivers, and then allow them to play a little bit better, which is at the end why we took the Browns on the money line. As far as the spread was concerned, at minus 5.5, we didn't see the Browns blowing out the Bengals, and for that reason, we decided to hedge our bets and take the Bengals on the spread, and wouldn't you know it, that's exactly how that worked out. So we started out week 2 with a 2-0 record. Moving on to Sunday, we have got the Atlanta Falcons at the Dallas Cowboys. Again, both these teams at 0-1, but this could be one of the highest scoring affairs in this second week because for the Falcons, look, they just got beat by a better team in the Seattle Seahawks, a Seahawks team that could do no wrong, and Russell Wilson again kicked off his 2020 season as being one of the MVP favorites. He was absolutely perfect, and the Falcons just couldn't stop them. The defense, again, had some issues, whereas the Dallas Cowboys, even though they were favored versus the Rams, that was a game where they just couldn't get enough going offensively. The Rams defense did enough, and maybe there was a questionable PI call towards the end of the game that would have changed the outcome. But at the end, again, the Dallas Cowboys fell short of expectations. And honestly, both these teams kind of have similar situations. They are absolutely loaded offensively, especially at wide receiver. The Falcons, Julio Jones, Ridley, Gage. The Cowboys, they've got Cooper, Gallup, CeeDee Lamb, and then at tight end, the Falcons have got Hayden Hurst, Todd Gurley at running back. Now, yes, the Cowboys have a little bit of an edge on the offensive line. They've got an edge at the running back position with Ezekiel Elliott, but I do believe still that the Falcons hold the most important edge in this game, and that is the quarterback position. I'll take Matt Ryan over Dak Prescott. I think Matt Ryan is just a little bit better and someone that we can rely a little bit more so. I also do give the wide receiver advantage to the Atlanta Falcons in Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, both top 10 wide receivers in my eyes. And then Russell Gage had a really nice coming out party in week 1. Defensively, here is where we could see this game decided, but neither one of these defenses scares me all that much. They're both dealing with some injuries, or I should say the Cowboys are, especially at the linebacker position. The Falcons, again, they didn't look all that great versus the Seattle Seahawks. So at the end, this comes down, in my eyes, to Matt Ryan versus Dak Prescott, and I just like the weapons that Matt Ryan has a little bit more so. So I will give the Falcons the edge here to win outright. As far as the spread, the Dallas Cowboys favored by -5.5. And honestly, even if they do win this game, which I'm not saying it's impossible, but that number close to a touchdown, I don't think the Cowboys are going to be blowing out the Atlanta Falcons. I think it'll be a close game, very high scoring. A good chance to take the over, honestly. But either way, I do think the Falcons have it on the spread as well. Next, we have got the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. Divisional clash here. The Bills 1-0, the Dolphins 0-1. The Bills took out the lonely Jets in week 1, pretty much dominated them. The score wasn't really a good indication of how badly the Bills beat the Jets. And then Miami Dolphins, they just lost to a better New England Patriots team in week 1. Ryan Fitzpatrick didn't look all that great. You know, Devontae Parker got nicked up in that game. The Dolphins defense didn't look all that great. And now, honestly, here in week 2, I think this is a very similar type of matchup for both these teams in terms of what they saw in week 1. The Bills are going to be facing a Miami Dolphins team that doesn't really have all that much offensively that scares you. Yes, I do like them more so than what the Jets have, but defensively, no one's going to stop Josh Allen. I think he's going to have a great week here, not only on the ground, but also through the air. And then for the Miami Dolphins, they face another team that is good at rushing the football. That's what they want to do offensively. They've got a good defense. So all in all, I see the Bills coming out with a victory similar to what we saw versus the Jets in week 1. I think this is as close to a lock as you can get this week. So I will take the Bills outright. The Dolphins plus 5.5 on the spread. I do think as this game goes, Josh Allen will carve up this defense and the Bills will separate themselves. So I'm going to go with the Bills on the spread as well. Continuing on, we've got the New York Giants at the Chicago Bears. The Giants 0-1. Just a really tough matchup in week 1 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. That great defense really limited Saquon Barkley. And unfortunately for the Giants, it doesn't get all that much easier now playing this Bears team where that defense is their strength. Whereas the Bears come into this game at 1-0 after being gifted a victory by the Detroit Lions. They should have lost that game multiple times. Mitch Trubisky really put them behind the 8 ball in the first 3 quarters, but then the Detroit Lions defense kind of folded, and Trubisky was able to lead the Bears to a comeback. And honestly, I see this game potentially going in a very similar fashion. The New York Giants defense doesn't scare me all that much. However, I will say the Giants offense does have more playmakers here. That's why I think that if the Bears go down here, they won't be able to mount a similar type of comeback, which is a reason why I like the Giants on the spread. On a number where the Bears are favored by -5.5, that's a little bit too high for me. I don't see the Bears blowing out anyone really this season. And yes, the Steelers did a great job of pressuring Daniel Jones last week, and the Bears surely can do the same. But Daniel Jones was still able to put up some points on the Steelers, and the Bears don't really have an offense that's going to be explosive scoring-wise. So I think this will probably be a lower scoring game, probably in the low 20s for both teams. But either way, I will take the Bears outright because I think this is a game, like I said, similar to last week. The Bears defense is just better, and they're going to force the young Daniel Jones into some mistakes, especially if the game is close late, and seal that potential victory. And then Trubisky, again, he doesn't have to be anything special here. All he has to do is be a game manager. Go and pick the Bears because this is still the easy part of their schedule. They don't have to be anything special here. Trubisky, throw for around 200 yards. If he gets 2 touchdowns, that's even better on top of that. But the Bears go rely on David Montgomery, some Allen Robinson, and a great defense, and that should be the keys for their victory here in a close game. I like them outright, but at -5.5, I'll take the Giants on the spread. Moving on, we've got the Denver Broncos at the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Broncos 0-1, the Steelers 1-0. The Broncos, tough loss versus the Tennessee Titans, but honestly shouldn't have even been that close considering all the missed field goals that took place in that game. And the Broncos could potentially be without Courtland Sutton in this matchup again, which really hurts Drew Lock because that is the best wide receiver on that team, no question about it. Phillip Lindsay also banged up, but they have depth at that position. But the Broncos offensive line still an issue in my eyes. If there's any team that will take advantage of that, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love the Steelers in this game. I think they take care of business. This defense, in my eyes, will shut down Drew Lock. I don't see the Broncos scoring more than 14 or 17 points in this contest. Whereas the Pittsburgh Steelers, they've got the weapons to hurt the Broncos. We saw that this offense is on a whole nother level with a healthy Big Ben. Juju Smith-Schuster was viable. Deontay Johnson looked good. Eric Ebron was a nice addition in the offseason, and he paid dividends. And even though James Conner was a little bit banged up, well, Snell came in that game and took care of business. So the Steelers behind a really good offensive line have all the pieces to really play anybody, even with some injuries at the running back position. But as of right now, Conner is expected to play, so I don't really see that as being a factor. At the end of the day, though, the Steelers are just the more complete team from top to bottom. I like them in this game outright, no doubts about it. On the spread, the Steelers are at -6.5. I think they can go and separate themselves as the game progresses and win by at least a touchdown, so I will also take them on the spread. Continuing on, we've got the Detroit Lions at the Green Bay Packers, an NFC North divisional clash. The Lions 0-1 after that blown game versus the Chicago Bears, whereas the Green Bay Packers almost put up 50 points on the Minnesota Vikings. They looked great. Aaron Rodgers returned to form, kind of silencing some critics that were potentially thinking that he was over the hill. Devontae Adams looked sensational. And now in this game versus the Detroit Lions defense that made Mitchell Trubisky look pretty serviceable, I'm afraid to think what Aaron Rodgers will do to the Lions in week 2. I think he's going to be a top 5 quarterback this week if you're thinking it from a fantasy perspective. But either way, this Lions defense does not scare me. And if it's only Devontae Adams yet again, he's still enough to cause nightmares for the Lions, but they've still got some other options: Lazard, MVS, Aaron Jones. So I think this game could be a blowout by the time the fourth quarter comes. I just don't think the Lions have the weapons to keep up with the Packers in this game. I give the advantage to the Packers defensively as well. Kenny Galladay also not trending in the right direction, potentially could miss this game, and obviously that does not help the Detroit Lions. So for that reason, I like the Green Bay Packers here outright, no doubt about it. I think the Packers put up a bunch of points versus the Detroit Lions and thoroughly dominate them. On the spread, this game is at -6.5 in favor of the Green Bay Packers. Honestly, I'm surprised that this spread isn't higher, closer to the double digits, so I'm going to hammer the Packers on the spread as well. All in all, I love the Packers in this game. This will be one of our locks of the week. Next up, we've got another divisional clash, this time between the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Tennessee Titans. Both these teams 1-0, and the Jaguars potentially coming off one of the most unprecedented, biggest surprise victories in Week 1, taking down the Indianapolis Colts as Gardner Minshew played a mistake-free football game and the Jaguars were able to capitalize on some mistakes of Phillip Rivers. Now they face the Tennessee Titans, who, even though they barely won versus the Denver Broncos, that game, like we said before, shouldn't have been all that close. Gostkowski really blew it on several field goal attempts, but kind of redeemed himself towards the end. But let's break down this particular contest. Offensively, neither one of these teams really scares me all that much. I think this will be the Derrick Henry show, especially because A.J. Brown has been ruled out of this game. So Ryan Tannehill is probably going to be asked to just be a game manager, throw between 15 to 20 passes in this game. Like I said, I expect Derrick Henry to eat here. Defensively, I think the Titans' defense is a little bit better than that of the Jacksonville Jaguars. But I will say, if Gardner Minshew plays another mistake-free football game, this game could be closer than some people anticipate, especially when the spread is at minus 10.5 in favor of the Tennessee Titans. Yes, I realize the last time these two teams played each other last year, when Ryan Tannehill was under center, while the Titans took care of business. But looking at it here, I'm just not all that confident offensively that the Tennessee Titans will be able to blow out the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I will take the Titans outright. I do think that's a safe bet. But as of right now, I will take the Jacksonville Jaguars on the spread. That minus 10.5 number is just a little bit too high. And then maybe towards the end, there's some garbage time points from Jacksonville. So I like them on the spread. Continuing on, we've got the Minnesota Vikings at the Indianapolis Colts. Both these teams at 0-1, but hey, the Vikings at least have a good reason. They lost to the Green Bay Packers, who are going to be a favorite in the NFC, whereas the Indianapolis Colts had one of the most embarrassing losses versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now in this game, yet the Colts are still favored at minus 2.5, which I find very surprising. For the Vikings, yes, defensively, they have some issues, especially in the secondary. So from that perspective, and especially with how pass-happy Phillip Rivers is, I could see why the Colts have the advantage in that category. But overall, man, I just like what the Vikings have, because Kirk Cousins versus Phillip Rivers, I think this game comes down to who protects the football better. And I'm going to give the edge to Kirk Cousins. Offensively, both these teams have great running backs, Dalvin Cook, and then for the Colts, tough loss for Marlon Mack, done for the year. But guess what? They have got Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines, so both very competent running backs. At wide receiver, the Colts probably do have an advantage there with T.Y., with Paris Campbell, whereas the Vikings is pretty much just the Adam Thielen show. The Colts also do have an advantage on the offensive line, but both these teams showed us that defensively they have lapses in week one. So for that reason, I think defensively this is going to be a wash. The Vikings, I like the pressure that they can deliver from time to time, potentially rattle Phillip Rivers, but like I said before, it's going to come down to which quarterback makes less mistakes. And right now, especially with what we saw in week one from Phillip Rivers, yes, there were some nice things, but it was the prototypical Phillip Rivers stat line, almost 400 yards, a touchdown, but then two just awfully timed interceptions. And for that reason, I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings here. Right now, I just have more faith in Cousins than I do in Phillip Rivers. I like them outright. On the spread, like we said, the Colts are favored by minus 2.5. I'm a little bit surprised by that number. If they do win, I don't think it'll be a blowout. So either way, I think the Vikings are a good bet on the spread as well. Next, we go to the LA Rams at the Philadelphia Eagles. The Rams 1-0. Nice little victory over the Dallas Cowboys, whereas the Philadelphia Eagles 0-1. Absolutely embarrassing loss versus the Washington football team. But if you guys followed us last week, you know that we started to say, as it got closer to Sunday, watch out for Washington versus Philadelphia. This could be a trap game. So many missing pieces on that offensive line for the Eagles. And the Washington defense is a really good unit, especially up front. And wouldn't you know it, that's kind of how that game unfolded, and the Eagles were upset. Now, favorably in this contest, the Eagles will expectedly get Miles Sanders back, potentially could also get Lane Johnson, and those two things will help them out. But the question is, will it be enough versus a Rams defensive front that's pretty good? And, oh, by the way, also has this guy called Aaron Donald playing for them. And then in the secondary, they also have some really nice pieces with Jalen Ramsey. Overall, this Rams defense is a good unit. And with the injuries the Eagles have on the offensive line, with the wide receiver position not being all that spectacular, and then primarily going to rely on their tight ends, I like the Rams to win that matchup. And in the same breath, the Rams have their own pieces offensively that are threatening. They have got a Robert Woods. They have got a Cooper Kupp, a Higbee. Now, I don't think that the rushing attack can compare to what the Eagles have. Offensive line, I think both these teams have issues, so it's a wash there. Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. I do like Carson Wentz a little bit more so, but I just see the Rams having a decisive advantage on the defensive side of the football. For that reason, I'm going to pick them to win here outright. On the spread, the Eagles are at plus 1.5. That's almost a pick 'em, so for that reason, I will take the Rams on the spread as well. Next up, we've got the San Francisco 49ers at the New York Jets, and we don't really have to say all that much here. This one is pretty easy to predict. Even though both these teams are at 0-1, the 49ers actually had a very tough and close battle versus a good team in the Arizona Cardinals. Could be one of the most improved teams in 2020 compared to last year, whereas the New York Jets pretty much got dominated last week by the Buffalo Bills, and I don't see that changing for week 2 because the Jets, Le'Veon Bell on IR, Jamison Crowder not playing this game. Darnold hasn't really taken the necessary steps. The offensive line leaves a lot to be desired. Same with the defense. Whereas the 49ers, yes, they have their own issues. The secondary is banged up. Richard Sherman going to IR. The 49ers wide receivers are banged up. George Kittle is a little bit banged up, but I still like them in this matchup. That rushing attack will take care of business. The offensive line will give Jimmy Garoppolo time to find whoever his targets are, and that front seven for the 49ers, I anticipate will dominate the New York Jets. This should be one of your locks of the week. I just have zero faith in the New York Jets this season. The 49ers will still rebound and put together a decent season in my eyes, and it starts here in week 2. I love everything about the 49ers outright on the spread. Jets are only plus 6.5. I think that number is way too low. Hammer the 49ers on the spread. Maybe the Jets get some garbage time points late to make this respectable, but still, I like the 49ers in every aspect. Next up, we have got the Carolina Panthers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, an NFC South divisional clash. Both these teams at 0-1, but the Buccaneers, I believe, will make the much quicker turnaround because in week 1, the Panthers, we said, yeah, they could get a victory here and it could be a contest versus the Raiders, but ultimately, the Achilles heel of this team will be that defense, and we said it. Don't be surprised if this defense is absolutely one of the worst in the league. It's still very young. It's still very inexperienced. Have added a lot of new pieces. They've lost Luke Kuechly, and they gave up 30-plus points versus the Raiders. Whereas the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, sure, they lost, but they lost versus the New Orleans Saints, an uber-talented team offensively and an underrated team defensively. We knew that there would be some early season struggles from Tom Brady getting in sync with his guys. Mike Evans was a little bit banged up. So I give the Bucs a pass. But in week 2, I absolutely believe the Bucs will get back to their winning ways. Tom Brady, I believe, will absolutely dominate this Panthers defense. But maybe more so it'll be the rushing attack of the Bucs, whether it's Ronald Jones or Leonard Fournette. It doesn't really matter because the Panthers proved, just like last season, that this year will probably be another one where their rush defense struggles mightily. They could not stop Josh Jacobs in week 1 to save their lives. And this Bucs defense actually was one of the few, if not only, units in last year's season that could stop Christian McCaffrey and contain him. So without Christian McCaffrey doing his normal Christian McCaffrey things, this Panthers offense takes a huge hit. Yes, I realize they've got DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson had a nice outing, but Teddy Bridgewater versus Tom Brady, and in a game where I expect the Bucs to force Bridgewater to beat them with his arm, I don't see that happening. I think the Bucs get this victory. I will say, I think this game could be very high scoring, and I would take the over, but at the end, the more talented team should win, and that is without a doubt the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They could be without Chris Godwin in this contest, but honestly, it doesn't matter. They have plenty of other weapons that should be able to dominate the Carolina Panthers defense. I like them outright on the spread. -8.5 seems like a big number, but for all the reasons I outlined before, and because I have zero faith in this Panthers defense, I'm taking the Bucs on the spread. I think they can win by close to double digits. The only way that the Panthers are able to sneak in there is if they get some garbage time points, but again, I don't see that happening, so I will take the Bucs outright and on the spread. Moving on, we've got the Washington football team at the Arizona Cardinals. Both these teams entered week 1 as underdogs, but both come into week 2 at 1-0. And for Washington, they really capitalized on the advantage they had in the trenches, beating the Eagles there, whereas the Cardinals, tough game versus the 49ers, very close back and forth, but ultimately Kyler Murray flexed his muscles and showed us why he is one of the top candidates by a lot of analysts to be that breakout quarterback in 2020. And DeAndre Hopkins continued to do his thing. I still don't understand why people had their doubts about DeAndre Hopkins. Going from Deshaun Watson to Kyler Murray with the way Cliff Kingsbury runs that system, it is not a downgrade, and DeAndre Hopkins showed us why he is such a stud still. Now, looking at this matchup in particular, yes, Washington has a very good defense. We saw that in week 1, but the Cardinals don't have nearly as many issues on that offensive line due to injuries, so I don't think we're going to see that big of an advantage for Washington in the trenches. And then Kyler Murray just has more weapons, and I think is a more versatile and higher upside quarterback than Carson Wentz. So I like the Cardinals offense here pretty much from top to bottom at wide receiver, at running back with Kenyon Drake, and at quarterback especially. Give me Murray over Dwayne Haskins 10 out of 10 times. And maybe the Washington defenses keeps this game close to begin with, but afterwards, I do think the better team will pull away, and Kyler Murray will again show us why so many of us picked him to be that breakout quarterback this season. I'm going to take the Cardinals to win outright. I think we should be pretty comfortable taking that choice. On the spread here is where it gets a little bit more interesting. The Cardinals are at -6.5, so close to a touchdown. And with that Washington defense, maybe you're saying they keep it close, but like I said before, I'm going to take the Cardinals there. I think they can pull away as this game goes on. I think that Murray will be able to wear down that defense. So for that reason, give me the Cardinals on the spread as well. Next up, we've got the Kansas City Chiefs at the LA Chargers. Divisional contest here. Both these teams at 1-0, but the Chiefs were much more impressive in their victory as they manhandled the Houston Texans, whereas the Chargers were bailed out by a missed Randy Bullock field goal that could have taken it into overtime. And honestly, this Chargers team is extremely concerning because without Phillip Rivers, this offense, we said that one of the biggest question mark teams heading into 2020 would be the LA Chargers because we didn't know the type of identity they would have with Tyrod Taylor. They definitely have the skill players around him, but Taylor is the one that will make that offense go. And we saw in week 1 versus a bad Cincinnati Bengals defense that he couldn't really get all that much going. And now I think in this game versus a good Chiefs defense, this will be a long day for the Chargers. Now, at least for them, they've got a good defensive unit, so maybe they contain Patrick Mahomes for a little bit. But honestly, this Kansas City offense is such a juggernaut that sooner or later, Patrick Mahomes will explode. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Hardman, Watkins, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You get the picture. The Chiefs should win this game pretty easily. I love them outright. I think that is a slam dunk pick. I have zero faith in Tyrod Taylor. Honestly, it wouldn't shock me the way he was playing and how much he struggled to air out the football and bring offensive scoring success to the Chargers if he's benched at some point during this season. So I like the Chiefs outright. The Chargers don't scare me. The spread at +8.5 for the Chargers. So close to that double-digit number. But again, I just don't see the Chargers being able to hang in there. And the Chiefs, I think they'll be able to score at least 20 points. I don't see the Chargers being able to score more than 14 or 16 points. So I'm going to take the Chiefs on the spread as well. Next up, we've got the Baltimore Ravens at the Houston Texans. The Ravens 1-0 coming off a dominating performance versus the Browns, whereas the Houston Texans 0-1 after losing to the Chiefs. But hey, there's no shame in losing to one of the best teams in the NFL. But unfortunately so for them, they now face another great team in the Baltimore Ravens in week 2 as they have a very tough starting schedule. Now, yes, the Texans maybe might have some better role players around Deshaun Watson and guys like a Will Fuller, a Brendan Cooks, a David Johnson, but they don't have the ultimate X factor, and that is obviously Lamar Jackson, reigning MVP, who continued on that pace in week 1. And even though the Ravens don't have as many weapons as the opponent the Texans faced in week 1, the Chiefs, they've still got Marquise Brown, a decent speedster that is a little bit boomer bust, but can still deliver. And then Mark Andrews, a top 5 tight end in the NFL. And they've got a great defense as well. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Ravens here. Maybe it's not as big of a win as what the Chiefs had over the Texans in week 1. But again, Lamar Jackson, with his rushing ability, I think he will be the reason why the Ravens pull out this game. The Texans plus 6.5 on the spread. I think the Ravens and Lamar Jackson wear down the Houston Texans defense as the game progresses, and they build a little bit of a lead. So I'm going to take the Ravens on the spread, but I will also take them outright. Looking at Sunday Night Football, we have got the New England Patriots at the Seattle Seahawks. Both these teams 1-0. And here we could see another great Cam Newton versus Russell Wilson matchup like years past. But obviously the big difference is that Cam Newton is now a New England Patriot. And let's quickly break down his debut for the Patriots last week versus the Dolphins. Offensively, the Patriots allowed Cam to do what he does best, and that is be a runner first. And he was pretty dominant on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns. Now, yes, he wasn't great through the air, but he didn't need to be versus the Miami Dolphins. What does concern me, however, is looking at the offensive pieces that he has compared to Russell Wilson, and when it comes to shootout type of games, because the New England Patriots, in my eyes, are not built for shootout type contests. And yes, they have a good defense, better than that of the Atlanta Falcons, which couldn't stop Seattle, but they're still missing a lot of their starters, and I do think Russell Wilson will be able to find holes in this defense. He's got Lockett, he's got Metcalf, he's got Chris Carson, he's got a Greg Olsen, and he's also a great scrambling quarterback. So for that reason, when I'm looking at these two teams offensively, I think from top to bottom, you have to give the edge to the Seattle Seahawks. Defensively, maybe the Patriots have a slight advantage, or you want to call it a wash. But either way, I like the Seattle Seahawks here. If it's a close contest, I give the edge to Russell Wilson. I think he is a more clutch quarterback. He takes care of the football better than Cam Newton. I love his escapability. Either way, the Seattle Seahawks have more weapons here. Give me them to win this game. Maybe it's close to begin with, and Cam Newton keeps pace with Russell Wilson. That's what we've usually seen in previous contests where these two guys square up against each other, and then ultimately Seattle and Russell Wilson make just 1 or 2 plays more than Cam Newton and kind of just separate themselves. And I think that's what we will see here on Sunday night. But either way, I think this should be a good game, potentially high scoring. I'll take the Seattle Seahawks to win outright on the spread, -4.5. I don't think that's that big of a number. And like I said, I don't think the New England Patriots have all that much firepower outside of Julian Edelman and James White. I'm not really scared by anyone else. I expect the Seattle Seahawks to force Cam Newton to beat them with his arm. So I will take the Seattle Seahawks on the spread as well. And finally, getting to Monday Night Football, we've got the New Orleans Saints at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Saints 1-0, the Raiders 1-0. Saints, pretty nice victory over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then the Raiders taking down the Carolina Panthers. Now, when it comes to this matchup, the big news is that Michael Thomas going to likely miss some time with a high ankle sprain. That's a big blow for the Saints offensively. One of the top wide receivers in the game missing time. But guess what? They still have the weapons. Guys like an Alvin Kamara, an Emmanuel Sanders, or Jared Cook. And especially versus this Las Vegas Raiders defense that just allowed the Panthers to score more than 30 points on them. Well, I still feel pretty confident in what the Saints will be able to do versus the Raiders. And I love the Saints defense as well. I think they can neutralize Josh Jacobs and force Derek Carr to beat them with his arm. And right now, outside of Darren Waller, I pretty much have zero faith in these other pass catchers. Henry Ruggs, still a rookie. And, Nelson Aguilar, still a first-year wide receiver for this team. So the point being is I like the Saints to pull away late in this game and win pretty comfortably. I will take them outright on the spread plus 5.5. I think that number should be bigger. I think the Saints can get close to a double-digit point of victory. So give me the Saints on the spread as well. Having finished our pick'ems, now let's take a look at our locks of the week, and we start with the Buffalo Bills at the Miami Dolphins. This one is simple. Give me the Bills over the Miami Dolphins. I love that defense. I love the offensive line for the Bills, and I think Josh Allen will have a lot of success versus the Miami Dolphins defense, so I'm taking the Bills there. Next, Detroit at the Green Bay Packers. I love Aaron Rodgers in his comeback tour in 2020. I think the Packers will dominate this Detroit defense, and I'm not really scared by the Kenny Golladay-less Detroit Lions. Next, we have got the San Francisco 49ers at the New York Jets. Give me the 49ers all day long. Even with some injuries on their end, this team is so much better than New York Jets, who are a complete mess. They're also dealing with their own injuries. Bell, Crowder, and Darnold doesn't look all that great. The 49ers 1,000%. Then Carolina at Tampa Bay. This game could potentially be closer on the scoreboard, but I like the Bucs outright. This Panthers defense is atrocious, will be one of the worst in the NFL this season. Can't stop the run. I think Tom Brady has a comeback victory here. Then Kansas City at the LA Chargers. Give me the Chiefs all day here. Without Phillip Rivers, this LA Chargers team looks lost offensively. I have zero faith in Tyrod Taylor to keep this game close. And then finally, the Saints at the Las Vegas Raiders. Give me the Saints. No Michael Thomas, no problem. They still have plenty of weapons to take advantage of the subpar Raider defense. And that Saints defense is a underrated unit, so I like them to win this contest. So with that, we wrap up our Week 2 game breakdowns. And as always, let us hear it in the comment section. Did you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you might have? And if you enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe. And as a quick reminder, if you guys want early access to these weekly picks, all you have to do is go online to our website at alldaypigskin.com, join our free newsletter, and you will get these picks prior to Thursday night football. Also, if you want up-to-the-minute thoughts from us on these betting situations, give us a follow on Twitter at alldaypigskin, and you will be able to see that, all this detail in the description. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.